yeah. Okay, you can go ahead and tell me. So,
well, just one aspect of it is I was on a bomber crew. I was a radio operator, gunner on a B-24. And I was sent over as a replacement for people who had been killed, and were assigned to groups of flyers who had lost some of their crew members, radio operators. And it was strange because most of the crews trained together as a unit in the United States, and then they were sent over as a trained crew. But I was sent over as a replacement, so I didn't know anybody. And they resented new people coming into their group because they were personal friends of the person who died. And in some strange way, well, not strange, but they missed their comrade.
Yeah.
And I was a stranger, so it was pretty hard for me. But I flew 36 missions with different crews. I guess in all I flew with about maybe 12 or 15 missions that way, until I finally, the last crew I was what I was most accepted by and able to be with. But we got shot down.
You were shot down? Where?
In the Philippines.
In the Philippines.
The southern part of the Philippines. And we were rescued by the guerrilla forces in the Philippines because the Japanese still occupied
parts of Philippines.
Philippines. They had outposts where they would report our flights coming over to bomb a target. So anti-aircraft fire. But we were hit by fighters, Japanese fighters.
Oh, really? So everybody made it out of your plane? They all survived? All your crew?
Just 2 of us survived.
Oh.
And both were radio operators and gunners. And we never were trained to evacuate a
plane? Really?
So I don't know if it has happened, but the plane was hit, and we could tell that it was going to go down. And so behind the bomb bay is a little area about this wide, and there's a hatch in the floor of the plane where they didn't.
Okay.
We have a hatch in the floor of the B-24 bomber without any previous training or experience with parachutes. But I made it. I remember that the sound.
It's okay if I come? Yeah, feel free to go anytime.
As I say, I had no training in parachuting. But, and I mentioned the Doppler effect. There was this roar of the engines, and they were laboring because they'd been damaged, and the plane was going to go down. And what became of the rest of the crew, I don't know.
What about the other person who was with you, or the gunner?
Yeah, his name was Mahanes, and he was from West Virginia. That's all I knew about him. And
he got out through the hatch too?
Apparently, because he's right behind me.
Okay.
And I jumped first. And I knew enough about the parachute to know that it was right here, and the life raft was in the back. But no, we never did it or trained in any way. Anyway, I jumped, and the roar of the plane just grew dimmer and dimmer, and it went off into the distance. And I assumed that it crashed somewhere because no one was piloting. Because I saw what I thought was a pilot through the bomb bay. The camera hatches here, and the gun position is about there. And then you look down toward the front of the plane, and it's through the bomb bay. And there's a catwalk. You go from the back to the front, and the catwalk. And I think I saw the pilot standing on the catwalk about to jump. So I assumed that
he jumped too.
He jumped too. But
what was the aircraft, Jose?
What?
What's the aircraft? What's the plane?
B-24.
B-24.
Yeah. And anyway, the parachute opened, and then I was floating in the air. You know? And I don't remember being frightened. You'd think it would be a terrifying experience, but I don't remember it as such. There was something almost peaceful about it, about being in midair, and you could hear sounds from way out. And unfortunately, the sounds were enemy fighter planes attacking our formation.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, there's no point of reference over water, so you don't know how far off the ground you are, or in this case of water. But anyway, I finally found myself in the water, but the shroud of the parachute had come over my head, and I was underneath it. So I was scratching at it. I finally got it past it, and my head was above the parachute. And then we were strafed by these planes, and luckily they didn't hit us. And they finally, I guess they ran out of gas or something. Anyway, they took off, and we were alone in these two life rafts. We tied them together with some belts we had. And I'm assuming that what happened was, in that part of the ocean, there are currents that go around. And one of the currents brought us to the shore of this Negros Island, was the name of it, southernmost island in the Philippines. And to make a long story short, we heard the surf, the sound of the surf, and we knew that we were near a beach somewhere, but it was pitch dark. We were 3 days and 3 nights out. And the next morning, when it got light, we found that we had landed in a little lagoon, and the surf was breaking on the beach a little further on. And we made our way there and pulled the rafts up on the beach, and promptly fell asleep because we hadn't slept. We had a canteen of water and some K rations, and we consumed those by the third day. And we found that we landed on this island, and off in the distance, about from here to the fence, I spotted a figure holding a gun, and didn't know whether it was Japanese. We knew that the island had been a Japanese outpost, and that the Philippines were still occupied by the Japanese forces. And it wasn't until this was just before the invasion of Leyte by the American Navy. Anyway, I saw this fellow, and he was crouched and looking at us, and he slowly got up and backed away, and then I heard him running, and we both thought they were Japanese. But it turned out that they were guerrillas. They had come back down from the mountains that day because the Japanese had moved their outpost further toward Leyte to reinforce their forces there ready for the invasion of Leyte. But we didn't know that. But I assumed that's why the outpost wasn't there anymore. Anyway, the people had come back down to reclaim that area. And they speak Tagalog. It's the language of the
Tagalog, yeah.
Tagalog. Yeah. And also they spoke Spanish, some of them, because it had been occupied by Spain. And then that was a working language there. And I know Spanish. So when one of the people that was in the party that came to meet us started speaking Spanish, and I told him that I knew Spanish, and then he and I conversed, and he told us who they were and what they planned to do. And that's what we did. We went up into the mountains with them, and then from there down again to the mouth of a river. And there was a clandestine radio station there, run by the Navy. And they had contacted the base where we were, and they sent a flying boat to the mouth of that river, picked us up, and took us back to the base. It was about a little over a month.
For the whole thing. Oh.
And then we got back to base, we briefed and all that.
This was in when? Which year? Remember the year and the month or anything like that?
The what?
Which year and the month?
Yeah, it was November. The day we were shot down was November 1st.
Of?
And we were there until December, 1st of December.
Of which year?
And they picked us up about that time.
Which year? You remember the year?
1943.
1943. Wow. What a story.
Yeah.
What a story. Thank you, Jose. I'm going to stop here.